Our third candidate is Rafael Grossi, a name you may recognize because he's in the news. He's an Argentine diplomat with a long career, and he has been leading the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, since 2010. He's the first person from Latin America to do so. He was re-elected, it's a hard thing to do, to take on a second term. And Rafael Grossi is nominated by his own country, Argentina. Please join me in welcoming Rafael Grossi. Good, Rafael. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, please. I don't know how he has time to run for Secretary General. I mean, he's trying to find a way out of the Iran war. But anyway, that's his commitment.
That is the case.
Yes. Welcome, Rafael Grossi.
Thank you.
We're going to give you 5 minutes to set out your vision about how you see the job as UN Secretary General and how you're going to do it. 5 minutes, and I will give you a 4-minute warning.
Very good. Well, thank you. It's great to be here, this historic place, and to see that so many are equally concerned and supportive of the United Nations and a multilateral answer to the problems of the day. This next election of the Secretary General of the United Nations, in my opinion, might arguably be the most consequential one in the history of the organization. And I believe this because of the diagnostic on which I think everybody would more or less agree on how we see the world: conflict, fragmentation, polarization, the return of interstate war, global crises of different natures. But what is especially worrying this time and for this particular selection process is that we see a fundamental, I would say, crisis of confidence in the United Nations, in the possibility and in the ability of the United Nations to be a factor that would be able to influence decisively world affairs, and in particular the pursuit of international peace and security. I said just now, interstate war has returned after many years here in Europe, but also in Africa and in many other places. And one dismaying element that we see when we look at each and every crisis, from Africa, in Sudan, of course, to Ukraine and Russia, to the Middle East, or Cambodia and Thailand, or India and Pakistan, or Azerbaijan and Armenia in its time, is one constatation. The UN is not there. The UN is absent from the managing or the resolution of any of the conflicts I have just mentioned. And it needn't be so. It needn't be so. Some say the United Nations has to play a role in this thing. Well, it's not going to happen unless we do things differently. It's not going to happen because we believe in that, or there's a principle about that. It is only going to happen when there is a conviction in leaders, in belligerent nations, that the participation of the United Nations, and in particular the Secretary General, is going to facilitate a better outcome than what they are currently having. And this conviction grew in me because of my own experience. It's not an idea that I had or some words that I try to put nicely on a piece of paper in the vision. This is what I have been doing in Russia and Ukraine, under fire, at the front line, at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, between China and Japan, Iran and Israel and the United States, In many places and on many occasions, I have seen firsthand and through my own experience that it is possible to play a role. And not only to play a role for the sake of playing a role, is that you can, and the multilateral platform, in this case, the IEEA, but it embodies, in a certain sense, the logic and the spirit of the United Nations. We can see that this, or through this intervention, we can prevent a nuclear accident, we can provide platforms for a solution on the ongoing crisis about Iran, or before that Syria, or before that Iraq, and all of these situations that we've had. So this idea that there is a centrality of the peace and security mission is not because there is a dereliction or any form of marginalization of the other pillars of the UN mission. It is because we have to look at what is happening in the world right now. And when war reigns, there is no human right to be defended. When war reigns, there is no developmental mission that can remotely be successful. So that is, thank you very much, that is very, very important. Of course, when it comes to development, this requires a profound soul search when it comes to the work of the United Nations. By the metrics that the UN applied to itself, which would be what? The Sustainable Development Goals. When we look at that, and mind you, 2030
Rafael
is
Grossi.
around the corner.
It's a rules-based order, and your 5 minutes are up. 5 minutes are up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
You called it a consequential decision.
Yeah.
It's been said many times tonight, and everyone here agrees with that. We also heard from the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, former UN official, Helen Clark, who said it is so consequential that now is the time for a woman to lead the organization. Why are you the best woman for the job?
I think this has to be taken very seriously.
What, the need for a woman, or
The issue of man or woman,
the issue of...
a man or a woman. When we are selecting Secretary General, we are selecting a person, the best person for the job, the best person for the job. And to be the best person to incarnate this crucial function, there's track record, there is merit, there is the capacity to federate, there is the capacity to generate consensus. It can be a man, it can be a woman. And I say this from the moral comfort of being myself a gender champion, from having taken a technical organization that when I took it over had 28% of women professionals, and today it has 53% in the space of 5 years. So I don't need anybody to tell me about this. So we need to select the best, and we have seen tonight, and we are having the privilege to listen to very distinguished women candidates. So the sacrosanct principle here is the equality of possibilities and opportunities between men and women, as simple as that.
Can you briefly give us a sense of the kind of skills and experience you would bring to the job? For example, in your role as the head of IAEA, you have really had a difficult juggling act between members of the UN, in this case over Iran's nuclear program, of course, an escalating war. What have you learned in this process that makes you the person for this job?
Well, I think that I was trying to address this just now. I have seen in this job, which is still ongoing, we see what is happening with Iran and the negotiations, that it is possible to be an impartial but active and influential player. It has been possible for me to talk to Vladimir Putin several times, and then to go to Volodymyr Zelensky several times, and then continue and to iterate until I find a solution. So it's not a theory for me, it's my job, it's what I do. Only thing that the UN would allow us to be operative in a wider platform.
We'd like some commitments from you. This is on the record. People are taking notes. The One for 8 Billion campaign, and the UN Associate of the UK is a founding partner in this, has called on all candidates to commit publicly to 5 principles during this campaign. 1, publishing financial disclosures. 2, engaging with civil society. 3, participating in transparent General Assembly and Security Council processes. 4, respecting Article 100 of the UN Charter, which, as you know, means independence for member states, and avoiding conflicts of interest with any current UN roles. Do you commit to those 5 principles, and if so, why?
I think in those principles, there's so much common sense that it would be hard to imagine that any candidate or anybody would have a problem with those. Subscribing formally, I can't. I am an elected leader of an organization, and so the only principles I can subscribe to are those that are produced by my policy-making organs. But of course, those principles are sane, are full of, I would say, common sense. So who can have a problem with that?
Good. Let's start with questions from the audience. This one comes from Georgios Kostakos. He's with the Peace Reflection Group of former UN staff, all the way from Greece. Now, his question, you've touched on this already. How will you publicly speak truth to power and invoke your political authority under Article 99 of the UN Charter to bring even major power violations before the Security Council, upholding the peaceful settlement of disputes and pursuing active, quiet diplomacy and mediation as appropriate? Well, it is the big book. When do you speak out? When do you quietly...
There are 2 elements there. There's one specific in the Charter, which is Article 99, when the Secretary General feels there is one issue there. But then there is the array of issues that he mentions in his question, which come under Chapter 6 of the Charter, when you have all the means of diplomatic expression that a Secretary General can bring to the job in doing all these things, in consulting, in talking, in proposing, which is what we have been doing at the IAEA. So I believe in a Secretary General that is constantly engaging in this kind of activity, as opposed to Article 99 as seeing as something that you only touch or you press the button and then something magic is going to happen. It has been invoked and nothing happened. So I believe in a constant, of course, that is a competence, and the drafters of the Charter were wise in indicating that the Secretary General is not just a chief administrative officer. It's much more than that.
So just very briefly, to be clear, you believe that you should use your megaphone, you should speak out, you should in some ways name and shame?
Well, it depends. It depends. Since we are in a church, remember the gospel, there is time to talk, there is a time not to do it, there is a time to observe, there is a time to laugh, and there is a time to cry.
And pray.
Absolutely. So I think, of course, the Secretary General is a voice, much more than a voice, and on occasion, he or she may need to express principles. But for me, principles must be expressed in a pragmatic way, because the Secretary General is not a force which is there as a moral compass of the world or a judge that is attributing guilty or innocence. He or she must be an active actor in international relations, and this is what we so desperately need at this moment.
A question from India, from Mandeep Tiwana from Civicus. The present critique of the UN is that it's far too state-centric. What are your plans to make the UN truly a people's United Nations that enables meaningful participation of citizens and civil society in resolving the world's problems?
Yeah, indeed. Of course, the UN is an intergovernmental organization, and member states are the ones taking decisions, and that is the normal setup of the UN. At the same time, we live in a world where the expression, societal expression, has a role, and it has been having
your plans, though, to make this happen.
It is happening. It is. I believe it is happening. It should. Well, if you mean by plan having an office or creating more bureaucracy for that, no.
But if you
because it's
agree
not
that
needed.
it's too state-centric...
Of course, you talk to everybody. You have to be, at the end of the day, we are accountable to the people out there who, by the way, have a very poor opinion of the UN, if we care to ask.
Question from the floor now, from Sanam Andolini from the International Civil Society Action Network. Hello.
The Women, Peace and Security Agenda, passed in 2000 with 10 Security Council resolutions, has been one of the most transformative agendas addressing conflict prevention, resolution, terrorism, security, and humanitarian issues. But it's been siloed and implemented in ad hoc ways, disjointed from the women-led civil society ecosystem that is leading much of the crisis response around the world globally that we have. And it's never had senior leadership at the UN. Civil society has long called for a special representative of the Secretary General on women, peace and security to enable the effective action and the efficiency needed. What plans do you have to elevate this agenda, partner with women's peacebuilding networks, and to realize the potential of the agenda and the promise of we, the people of the United Nations? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, those words have resonated ever since 1945, we the peoples. But as I said before, I am a bit skeptical about creating offices, creating representatives. In fact, one of my ideas is to reduce the number of special representatives and special offices. I think the Secretary General has a political responsibility to do some of the things that you are saying and being accountable for those.
Even if you don't appoint a special envoy, do you agree with Sanam that more work has to be done in the women, peace and security?
It's an evidence. It's an evidence. It's an evidence. But this is why I say that it is in the area of international peace and security, there is a moral and statutory obligation for the Secretary General to assume these roles. This proliferation of figures has become too much, and it has to be stopped. Thank you.
I can tell you that if you get the job, people like Sanam will make you
absolutely. She will be more than welcome.
Question from the audience. Peter Reevy is here tonight. Peter?
Where are you?
Peter's not here?
Not there.
Any other Peters? I'll read Peter's question.
Yeah.
With the recent successful UN resolution for all UN member states to take all possible steps to avoid causing significant damage to the climate, what will you do to ensure the world we all share together will be at the heart of their work? So climate.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest challenges we have collectively, I would say, and one which is, I would say, closely intertwined with the discussions on energy security. These are agendas that have come combined in the past few years. I think we have reached important milestones in terms of climate, in terms of what we need to do, and at the same time we see that we are far from that. A little bit what I
even
said
further.
In development, we see that there is a divergence. Some things have been done, the International Panel on Climate Change, and these are things that we follow very closely from the IAEA, because we are the only organization in the system that has energy in the title. So we are following that, but we see that there is a discrepancy between certain goals that are diplomatically agreed and the possibility to bring them forward. So I think there has to be a more synchronic work in terms of energy and the climate diplomacy. It is also very, very important, I think, after 30 conferences, and I think we have endured a few of those, conference of the parties, these COPs have become an unmanageable I don't know, I suppose that some of you maybe several have been attending those, and now it has become a yearly manifestation with thousands of organizations, commercial sites. So I think there is a need to refocus there, because in particular, vulnerable countries, small island development states, etc., they do have an existential stake on issues related to climate, but also other countries have an economic stake on what they need for their economic development in terms of energy. So trying to bring together those agendas, for me, it will be very, very important.
Okay, maybe even an end to those COP conferences. I think Hannah Mousavi from the lovingly named Pomegranate House, Gender and Governance NGO. Hannah? Oh, great.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, thank you very much. So given the rapidly changing global environment, including the shift in funding streams and the growing influence of major donors, how will you safeguard the integrity and the independence of the United Nations so it continues to serve all nations rather than just the interests of the most powerful actors or contributors? And this also relates to conflicting agendas that these actors may have versus the United Nations.
Well, thank you. An important issue, and we've been having important conversations with philanthropists today. This is very important. For one thing, I think we need to make it so that we re-engage with the membership and that assessed contributions are paid. Without that, it will be very difficult for us, for the organization, to carry out its mission. As the Secretary General has rightly described, we are facing a very, very serious financial crisis at the moment, which compromises the ability of the UN to work efficiently. For that to be corrected, I think there is this trust deficit that I was pointing out in my introductory words, in the sense that there has to be a reconnection between the Secretary General and the major contributing countries to make sure that we can have again, because this has been broken, we have again a constructive relationship when countries are willingly and convinced of the support they're giving us. In terms of donors, you were, when you were referring to that, you were referring to private sector or non-traditional donors, if I may ask you? In general. Yeah, in general, yeah. Well, I addressed the state side of the equation, which has to do with this deficit in terms of trust, confidence, that needs to be repaired. In terms of others, I think the UN, as you know, has in place important guardrails or norms to ensure that out of voluntary contributions coming from the private sector, no undue influence comes. But I think it is very important to be able to, I would say, engage even more. And I'm referring to this conversation I was having with philanthropists like the other candidates as well today. Look at this example. In today's world, the Gates Foundation has become the second largest contributor to the World Health Organization. Setting aside value judgments, that in itself tells you that important tectonic plates are moving, and we have to be watching that as well to be able to perform better.
Rafael Grossi, your time is almost up, but yes. I can't let you go before you reassure the audience that you're not going to be a Secretary General who starts with high energy and then you end up exhausted and fed up and frustrated. How will you relax?
Well, I would say it's very difficult these days. As you know, we discuss sometimes out of this framework of the issues that I am dealing with, the crisis in Iran, and we are in dramatic hours on this, or what is happening in Ukraine.
How will you relax?
How do I sports, and of course, I come from Argentina, football.
Okay. You're going to have to run to Thank you, Rafael Grossi.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rafael. It's really good to see you. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck.